Big news yesterday. Came out after we went off air. They had until 8 a.m. this morning. They made it a little bit ahead of time. The NFL will appeal Judge Sue Robinson's ruling of 6-game suspension for Deshaun Watson. Now, we had chatted about this from the very beginning, that although Judge Sue L. Robinson, former federal judge who retired in 2017, was hired to be an independent judge so that Roger Goodell was not the judge, jury, and executioner. That was what the players did not want. So now we're getting a chance to see the new CBA, the new process work for the first time. Judge Sue Robinson overheard the entire court case. The NFL had their lawyers representing, wanting Deshaun Watson allegedly suspended indefinitely for at least one season as more information rolls out. The NFLPA was representing Deshaun. They said no games, and then allegedly they were okay with 6 to 8 games, and allegedly the NFL was okay with 10 to 12 games. But once again, nobody knew shit about fuck because nobody was in there and there was no leaked sources. Now it is alleged that not only will Roger Goodell appoint somebody from the NFL to oversee the appeals process, but the NFL is in control once again of what the ruling is, how this will go. The internet backlash after the 6-game suspension was given was loud. Loud. I think we were all very, very surprised about the amount of allegations, the narrative that seemed to be pretty true in all of those allegations. So maybe there's a conspiracy to get Deshaun Watson to make him look terrible and maybe extort him out of money, or maybe there's some definite truth in some of these stories, and we got to think about that being the highest paid contract in the NFL, representing a league full of very good people where negativity normally hogs publicity. So there's a fine balance in there of what's going to happen. New precedent. Judge Sue Robinson puts a 6-game suspension. Now it's back to the old CBA. The NFL is back in charge. And this thing, everybody's assuming is just going to be a full league year because that's what the NFL lawyers who represented the NFL in the case in Judge Sue Robinson's courtroom are going to be pitching to the next appeal, which is not Roger Goodell. He's going to appoint somebody, maybe Condoleezza Rice or something like that. All of this is precedent, though, Ty, right? All of this is precedent for future situations that arise. Obviously, we hope that this type of situation never pops up again in the NFL. We hope nothing bad ever happens again in the NFL. But with thousands and thousands of employees in basically every single company in the country, something bad's going to happen. Negativity will hog the publicity. It'll be huge, and this is going to have to take place yet again in a different avenue. And everything that happens here is setting up for what the future punishments are going to be and how everything's going to be handled. The NFL knows that, right? Everybody's thinking they're going to come in and just do a full league year. If they do that, that'll set up for the future discussions to be like, well, who's actually, what's the purpose of this court case if we're just going to appeal it and they're going to be doing it anyways? It's a fascinating time in the NFL, even though it's obviously an incredibly serious allegation coming against Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, for sure. And we talked about it yesterday. Like, in simpler terms, like, it seemed like this was the opportunity, maybe in the only time in his career as commissioner, for Goodell to go babyface and kind of make this decision on his own. And you wonder if maybe this situation almost has an asterisk. Like, and it's tough because this is going to set the precedent, but maybe this almost has an asterisk because there are so many cases, and because we know bad things are going to happen. But when it's the number, I think, is what everyone is kind of, you get hung up on that. It's like, it's not like this was a one-time offense. It's whether the stuff was right or whatever happened is whatever happened, but it was a repeat case. So like, maybe, I guess, and it goes just to the, like, what the players were saying, that they didn't want Goodell to be judge, jury, and executioner. But if he just hands this off, like,
what's the deal?
Exactly.
So now I'm wondering, what's the deal? Why Roger Goodell doesn't want to make a decision now, or does he want to continue to be like, hey, I heard what everybody was saying about the fairness of me having every decision, all the power, and so I'm going to continue to kind of be hands off of this? Or is he nearing the end of his career and he's just like, I don't know if I should be the one setting precedent in this entire thing. I'll let somebody else do it. Who are the names that were potentially going to do it?
Condoleezza Rice was one of them for sure. I think there were 2 more maybe that were options. But again, it feels like with this stuff too, like, you look at the suspension numbers, it's like when they were first reporting it, it was like, oh, it could be 0 games, it could be 1 game, it could be 2 games, like, and it's gone from like 0 up to an entire season.
You know what? I think it's because nobody had a clue.
No
I think all the people that were reporting stuff were just literally just
grasping for straws,
pissing into the wind. Just like hoping it does, like just hoping that something was going to happen. Because I think Ian Rappaport came on our show and was like, it might just be a fine. It was like, who the fuck is saying that?
Yeah, not a chance.
There's no way that was what it was.
No.
And then when it came out 6 games, everybody thought it was very, very low. So was it a misread maybe by the powers that be on what the expectations were outside of there? Or is this just Sue L. Robinson was this is my first time. I have to go off a precedent of what has happened in the past. I have to go off what was presented directly to me. And she's just like, hey, this is how it goes. Like, this is what's presented. This is the precedent. This is what this has been. This is my ruling, because that's what a federal judge would do. So as Judge Sue Robinson and the NFL are trying to figure out how they're going to manage this relationship, I assume we're just watching it unfold publicly. And hopefully this goes for 10 years. I think all parties would be excited about an independent arbitrator. But this is all very, very important. Like, every step of this is very important for future shit.
Yeah, I think they were guessing because they didn't know what Sue L. Robinson was going to do. And she basically, like, what I've been reading is she said, like, I guess violent versus nonviolent was a huge thing in the player conduct policy. If it's nonviolent, it could only be so many games or whatever. And then she was only presented the 4 or 5 cases. I'm sure she knows about the number 26 or 24, whatever it was, but she was, like, in her ruling, I don't think she was allowed to have that number in her head. So
Did Deshaun Watson's lawyers text the NFL's lawyers?
Yeah, all of his text messages for the last 2 years.
Every single one.
Deshaun.
Yeah.
The NFL will appeal the Deshaun Watson ruling. That happens, who knows? On the NFL schedule, the NFL chose to appeal the ruling. The NFL will also assign the follow-up
Correct.
Yeah.
judgment.
The judge.
It's in the NFL's hands. They can do whatever the fuck they want, however the fuck they want, whenever the fuck they want. Allegedly, Roger Goodell is going to appoint somebody to handle this instead of him, even though if he wanted to, he could handle this and do whatever he wanted, just like the old CBA, as the NFL as a whole, and Judge Sue L. Robinson try to figure out what the precedent's going to be for this new independent arbitration system that the NFLPA fought hard for the NFL to institute, that inevitably ended up with all the power back in the NFL's hands, which you could have figured out if you just saw the way it was written as soon as it was written the way it was, which we were kind of talking about at the very beginning of this whole thing. But at least it's a much better process than it was before. Allegedly, we shall see how it goes. I don't think anybody would be upset with however many games are added on to the original sentencing, other than maybe Deshaun Watson, his family, his friends, and maybe some members of his team, because I assume there's some members of his team that are also like, all right.
Let's end
Yeah.
this.
All right, let's get this thing over with. Everybody's assuming it's going to be a season because an indefinite suspension is what the lawyers who were representing the NFL were pitching Judge Sue L. Robinson for. And those lawyers that were representing the NFL now are representing the NFL in a case against Deshaun Watson to the NFL. So I think indefinite suspension, at least of a season, feels like what's potentially coming. But then there's a lawsuit, I guess, that could happen from Deshaun Watson. And then there's, after 6 games, it could be held up. I mean, none of us understand any of it, but I think everybody on earth would like this to be over with and hopefully never, ever, ever happen again for the good of all society.
Yeah, but is it going to be over? Like, you would think at this point, like, let's just kind of, whatever happens, and let's move on, put it behind us. But we keep hearing Deshaun basically is adamant that he didn't do anything. And I don't know.
Well, that's a whole conversation piece now, too, because Jimmy Haslam, owner of the Cleveland Browns, who just gave $230 million of his money into escrow, because that's the guarantee. In the NFL, the owner has to put the amount of guaranteed money into escrow. Now, I believe they are still investing that and getting interest off of that, but they have to have that amount of money fluid anytime they give a guaranteed contract to anybody. That's why a lot of owners don't give these massive guarantees. Jimmy Haslam, groundbreaking, trailblazing, first fully guaranteed deal worth $230 million for Deshaun Watson, a man who we had no idea how many games he was going to be able to play this upcoming season after missing an entire season last year. So Jimmy Haslam had to put that money into escrow. He signed this, had to make this decision to move on from Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield won them a playoff game for the first time in forever, but for whatever reason, it didn't work. Sounds like all parties were in on that ending. How'd they fuck that? How does that happen, by the way?
Beat the Steelers in the playoffs.
Just 2 years ago.
Without their head coach.
Jimmy Haslam's coming out, though, and saying, hey, we're watching Deshaun on and off the field. He's remorseful. He's changing. He's ready to do his thing. And then, everybody that's speaking for Deshaun Watson, his camp is like, Deshaun Watson is adamant he did absolutely nothing wrong. So is he being remorseful and did nothing wrong? Maybe. I don't know. That'd be quite a good case study. But it feels like this is going to get nitpicked the entire time. And if they sue, if Deshaun Watson, I guess he can file an appeal for the 6-game suspension by today. Like 3 p.m. probably. If he files an appeal to the original 6-game suspension, then that is when it could potentially get taken into court and the Tom Brady situation could happen.
Yeah,
but a lot of legal people are saying that it wasn't easy for Tom Brady to be able to play while that whole thing was going on. It was some sort of addendum that they had to enact and do. It's not just like a matter of fact thing. It's not like Deshaun Watson is going to appeal the 6-game suspension, which is what he would have to appeal to be back by week 1 to hold it up in courts to delay the suspension, like what happened in Deflategate situation. Yes. I guess it's not just a matter of fact that because he does that, he's back week 1. I guess there's some bunch of shit that also has to happen and a bunch of things that have to get agreed to, whatever the case. They're going to fight back and try to get him back at the beginning of the season. The NFL is going to do it. So there is still so much shit that has to take place. And if Deshaun agrees to delay the suspension, he's making like 40x the amount of money the next season.
Yeah.
So the $1 million salary for this year is what he's losing. Now, people are pissed about that as well. Hey, listen, people are right, justifiably pissed for that. If you are pissed, I think there's a lot of people that are on your side, and I think everybody can understand why, because he's literally taking zero fine. He got like $49 million guaranteed this year, and the $1 million is the salary, which was beautifully laid out, I guess, by his agent, David Mulligata. And then, that's the only thing that's really getting cut into for the suspension this season, because you lose those game checks that you're out. I lost one. Yeah, Indianapolis fined me $140. Colts 1-game suspension was like, I don't know, $39,000.
Yeah, hurt a little more.
So I got fined $39,140.
That'll happen.
Both by the city and
God damn it.
the Indianapolis Colts suspension. Those game checks are the big deal, though.
Yeah.
Anytime you hear somebody put a game check on it, a lot of money, a lot of money. He's only missing $1 million salary worth, which is basically vet min. And then his next year of his contract, that money goes way up again. So if he delays the suspension to next year, that would counter, every decision that was made in the contract structure to have the $1 million be there. So I think whatever the appeal is, I think it's over.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem like he's gonna appeal the 6-game suspension. It's if he's gonna sue the NFL for appealing the ruling from Judge Robinson.
So he would have to appeal the first ruling to be able to sue it to be back for week 1.
Yes.
So he can't appeal the next ruling because he would have to appeal this one first before appealing the next one.
And the NFLPA already released a statement that they wouldn't appeal the original suspension.
Yeah, but now because the NFL is appealing,
Yes.
are they thinking about appealing so they can hold it up in courts and not get suspended ever this season? I don't know. Business-wise, it doesn't sound like that would be the right move. But business-wise, they gave a guy $230 million guaranteed, and they have no idea if he's going to be able to play again.